Hey guys, I'm Kyle. I also go by the pseudonym of FringeFiles on Reddit. I write a lot of horror stories and such, and I thought it'd be a good idea to actually dictate some of my own stories. The way these are formatted is a little bit different. They're supposed to be entered by and dictated by specific characters in the story. The entered by is usually an officer or a doctor or somebody who's listening to the story, and the dictation is by the person who's supposed to be telling the story. So this one today I'm going to start off with is archive file F-6431A. Dictation by Todd Serland, entered by Officer Percival Uval. He calls himself Six. I don't know much more about him than that, just that he's become more of a plague to me than I've been willing to admit. Since I was 8 years old, I have been aware of Six and his mischievous nature, though at such a young age my parents attributed my playfulness and overly friendly nature toward an unseen being as characteristics of having an imaginary friend. More often than not, they would simply play along and pretend I was pretending. Oh, how wrong they were, as they smiled and joked about how Six was a goofy idea in a child's mind. He was gaining power in my conscience, slowly manipulating me to his puppet through secrets and devious plans to steal cookies and slip my grandfather a laxative during his after-dinner snack. Six came to me when I was alone, a rejected child amidst a former military family who jumped house to house before I could make any friends at any of the locations. At the age of 8, when I met Six, I only had one person I considered my friend, and that was only because he mooched off me for lunch money when I had an extra $1 or so. I was playing with the child in question, a pudgy mulatto boy by the name of Ryan, when he kicked my football deep into the forested area behind our Virginia home, thus forcing me, the more fit of the two of us, to retrieve the precious item I had scored only a day before from my tight-fisted parents. As I ducked between the trees and heard the sound of his fat feet slapping the ground fading, I became acutely aware of something that seemed so abnormal amidst the solitude of the wooded area around me. The breeze touched the branches above my head, rattling them to and fro. The light peeked in from behind the green leaves and filtered onto the ground around me. I saw the ball in a clearing ahead of me, and I was overly willing to go in without heed for the circle of death that lay ahead of me. As I crossed the threshold into the clearing, I noted that no grass, no plants, no animal, nothing lived in this small clearing. It was a completely barren circle. Something straight out of a horror movie, had it been nighttime. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end when I began to feel ill at ease. Something I have only felt a handful of times since that day, though I can only attribute those times to the moments when Six was thoroughly annoyed with my presence, as he was at this time. I was an intruder in his domain, and he was a protector of it. I reached for the ball, and it playfully rolled away. Just slightly. I bent to pick it up, and it rolled farther from my fingers. Something I found odd and began to get very wary of another being present. I, again, got close to the ball, and when it again rolled out of my reach, I became slightly annoyed and decided to dive on it, protecting it from escaping. This backfired as I landed chest first in the dirt and heard the cackling laughter of the being I would soon befriend in the shadows. The ball bounced on the ground and rolled into the side of my head, nudging me in a taunting manner. His voice seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. It was a deep, gruff sound that can only be described as a man with a very bad case of strep or something like that. The hoot of his laughter echoed in my brain as I lay there for a moment, his small figure pushing its way through the plants around me to stand a mere few feet in front of me.
"Damn, kid! And here I thought humans were supposed to be smart."
He smiled, a wicked grin on his narrow face. His imp-like figure stood above me, his gut puffed out over his small legs, his yellowed teeth pulled into an amused and twisted smile, his teeth bulging out of the top of his lip. At the time, I can only attribute his looks to that of a demon, though in his interaction with me proved that he had no harm in store. He helped me to my feet. He was no taller than I was at 8, and kicked the ball up at me.
"Name Six? What do they call you?"
I mumbled my name and began talking to the creature as though he were a long-lost friend. A few minutes passed, and I invited him to come play with me and Ryan, but he declined. instead telling me
another time would be better.
another time indeed. He came to me multiple times over the next week or so, staying for a few hours before departing through the trees in my yard. My parents were always home, but never saw him or interacted with him directly, always referencing him through as though he were an imaginary friend, looking a good foot or so over his darkened, fleshy head. I began to involve him in bigger parts of my life, and he began to influence me more and more as weeks progressed. My naivety allowed me to play right into his hands, and his silver tongue kept him one step ahead of me, always. Years passed, and he stuck around in my life. My parents began to worry as I neared 13 and still talked to my childhood imaginary friend. But I always persisted and protested that he was real, something that landed me in therapy at 15. Six never relinquished his grip on me. Never changed his view on me, and always held some form of mischievous plan in his back pocket. I landed myself in trouble 4 or 5 times when I listened to him, but it was always so much fun. He gave me the secrets to use against people, things that no one else knew, but for some reason he always did. He showed me places to safely sneak off to, and how to obtain my heart's greatest desires without drawing attention. Six was the first one to introduce me to a woman's body. At 14, he showed me how to sneak into the girls' locker room, showed me which empty locker to hide in, where to step to avoid coaches, and where to position myself to admire the very attractive body of the girl I had a major crush on, something no other being could do. I began to understand that our relationship was unnatural, and my parents sat me down at 16 and told me I had to let him go. But I was not about to let the creature who had spent the last 8 years with me slip away. I instead became more cautious, ignoring him in front of my parents and speaking softly unless we were completely alone. Six was my best friend and would never hurt me. Or so I believed. My parents kept their ever-worrying eyes on me as I grew older and continued to act out by carrying out pranks and doing things that would be considered a little dangerous. But then again, I never had a guardian angel like Six. After almost a solid 12 years of being the best mischief friend, Six told me he had a favor to ask of me, something I had never encountered with him before. He wanted me to help him do something, but I could not tell anyone what it was, nor could I refuse to do it. He made sure of that, and I, of course, was eager to help him and promised to do whatever it was without so much as a question. It was about this time that I realized the true extent of Six's evil intentions.
Todd, I know this is going to sound impossible for you, but I have never asked even a single thing of you. I just want this one thing. And that will be the only thing I ever ask. Then we can go back to making mischief and having fun. I promise.
His smile had disappeared from his usually happy face. His eyes had darkened to an amber color, and his face was now a general scowl.
See, I am only on this planet for as long as I consume one human soul every 20 years or so. And it's coming upon that time. I need a human soul to feed on. And it must be someone whose heart is pure as snow. Someone innocent with no devious intent. I have the perfect target, but you're not gonna like it.
He looked at me with a longing intention, a devious mind at work. I began to fear him. Six, I can't kill myself, I stuttered slightly.
No, my boy, not you. Another, like you, a human, a female human child.
I immediately knew where this was headed. I was afraid of the words yet to come.
There is a child born of your mother's sister.
My aunt and her newborn baby girl were staying with us for a few months until my aunt could take care of both of them, and making them, of course, relatively easy targets. But Six was asking me to do something incredibly selfish against my family. He wanted me to kill my newborn cousin, a girl who had yet to even open her eyes properly. I protested, and he rejected my protest and used the dreaded,
"It's the only way."
The crickets chirped lightly. The morning dew had begun to cling to flowers outside of my windows. My aunt stumbled upstairs in her half-sleep and bedded down in a liquored-up stupor, something I planned to use to my advantage, though she still remained a light sleeper even in a drunken clout. The baby stirred lightly from the room, cooing in the half-light and gurgling as babies do. I rose slowly, with my weapon of choice, a pillow, from my bed. I was going to smother the child in the dead of night, and when my aunt awoke to a dead baby, there would be very little evidence of foul play. She was, after all, a newborn. I slipped down the hall, weapon in hand, and caught a glimpse of Six as he clung to the shadows just ahead of me. I began to be very afraid. I knew this was wrong. I knew it was morally objectable, and yet I still pressed on for the friendship of such an odd creature. Something my family and friends could not see, something that labeled me crazy every moment I spent talking to it, yet held such a dear friendship with me that no man, woman, child alike could rival our partnership. I don't recall the power going out, but the lack of ambient noise awoke my aunt from her slumber as I opened her door, something that put me in a very awkward position, as I now had to choose whether to feign my way out of her room or slip in during her confusion and await her silence as she fell back into an alcohol-induced coma once more. It was in this moment that I saw the unforgivable evil in Six that drove me to the brink of insanity. He stood over her still form as she lay back, a long, sharp nail dangling over her throat, his wicked voice echoing in my head,
"Do it, or she dies in the baby's place."
His face went white, or my face went white. My hands trembled. My mouth opened to speak, but a voice would not come.
"Foolish boy, I will give you to the third count to do something, or my nail rips her throat open."
It is at this point that I fainted. When I awoke, I was laying in a cell by myself. The dark corner outside echoed with the voices of men who claimed they were sober and others begging for a phone call to talk, while someone complained about getting bail, and I called to a guard nearby, but he flipped me the bird and walked away. I was appalled at the behavior of a man with a badge and slumped back to the corner of my cell. A cackling laugh came from the corner, and I immediately knew he was there. I turned slowly to face him. "What did you do?" I yelled at him, my face clearing quickly. My confusion was melting away. He simply laughed. "Six, what did you do?" His smile was wide, his eyes deeply yellow.
"Only what you failed to do, Todd."
And that concludes the story, guys. So, I know, kind of an interesting contrast there. Hope you enjoyed it. You can click right here to subscribe to my channel. Got a lot of different variety of videos for you guys to check out. I know it's kind of a huge, kind of a random thing here. Some rants, some music, some actual stories. I will continue the Fringe Files series if you guys like it. The Archive File series, as it's known. You could find it online if you want to read all of them without having me read them to you. You can find them online at www.reddit.com/users/FringeFiles. Look under any of the submitted. You could find any and all the stories. You can also click here to view the next video when it is published, and it will be another one of my awesome stories. If it's awesome to you, at least. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.